Our first artist is Mitch Capel. Mitch is also known as Granddaddy Junebug. He's a master storyteller, recording artist, a published author, and poet. He mesmerizes, and this is honest-to-goodness truth, his audience as he brings stories to life while plucking the string with just the touch the human heart craves. He has been described as a word magician, a national treasure. I don't know how old you have to be a national treasure, Mitch, but just saying. 21, perfect. Okay. Unexpectedly powerful and a transformer of lives. Mitch first began writing and performing skits at the age of 12. He's only 17 now, and has over 35 hours of stories stored to memory. That is kind of amazing. I can't even remember where I was yesterday. So he's been featured at numerous schools, libraries, museums, and festivals since 1995, including DuSable in Chicago. I probably didn't say that right. The Kennedy Center in D.C., the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, the Smithsonian's 2009 Folklife Festival on the National Mall, and the presidential inauguration of Barack Obama. He's been the artist in residence at the International Storytelling Center and has received accolades and awards from local, state, and national organizations for his work with youth. He lives in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I know. Nobody knows where Southern Pines is. It's a couple of hours from Fayetteville. I'm going by what was on the website. I'm just saying. But yes, he does live in Southern Pines. Can everybody please give a very warm welcome to Mitch Capel.
All right. It's been 4 days and my name has finally gotten right. But you know, it doesn't bother me because I wrote a little poem called The Name Game. I said some people called me Mitchell, then they called me Capel. Some folks called me Mitch Capel, and well, I ain't able to correct your enunciation because you see, I wasn't on the plantation when my surname was given to me. It's called The Name Game. All right, so anyway, I don't care what you call me, but people ask me, do I do personal stories? So I'm gonna try to tell you a couple personal stories. I went to Howard University back in the 70s, and as a student at Howard University, you know, eat in the cafeteria, but you like to eat out every now and then. So there was a restaurant in Southwest DC called Holgate's, and you could go to Holgate's, and for less than $1, you could get some. It was turtle soup. You could get turtle soup for about $1, and you could eat all the rum buns you could eat. They would give you all the rum buns you could eat. So me and my boy Dave Mosier, God rest his soul, from Peekskill, New York, and Big Cleveland Henderson, Big Cleve weighed about 300 pounds. We'd go in there and we'd put a dent on them rum buns. And one time we was in there killing them rum buns, and the manager came over and he said, went to Cleve and said, you can't eat no more. But he said, but the sign says all you can eat. He said, but that's all you can eat. So I went, my parents sent me some money, and I decided I was gonna go to Holgate's and get me a real meal because I didn't want them to think I was just a turtle soup rum bun kind of guy. So I go there by myself. I didn't want to treat the fellas, so I go there by myself, and it was late in the evening, and it was only me and actually one other person in the restaurant. And I sat there, and I looked, and I saw her, and I was like, man, even though D.C. is a large metropolitan city, if you're there long enough, you run into the same people. It's really, I found out D.C. stood for deep country because most people were from the South up there. But anyway, I saw this woman. I had been seeing her before, but I wanted to holler at her, but I never got up the courage to talk to her. But she was beautiful, right? So I saw her over there, and I'm over here checking out without checking out. Fellas, you know how we check them out without checking them out. I was checking out without checking out, and she sneezed. And I saw an object coming towards me, and I come from a very athletic family. My father played minor league baseball. My brother coached here at Old Dominion, as a matter of fact, basketball. And on to the NBA. My nephew played at Carolina. One played at Duke. He's the head coach now at Pitt. My son played at Virginia Commonwealth. I played as an athlete. I was a sportsman. I never made it to college, but I saw the object coming at me, and my reflex is I caught it. I looked at it. It was an eyeball. I looked at her, and she was looking around like this, and I was like, damn. So I got my napkin, and I put it on the napkin, and I took it over to her, and I said, ma'am, you looking for, she said, oh my God, yes, thank you so much. And she got some water and she poured it on it and she popped it back in her head and she asked me if I wanted to have dinner with her. And I said, sure, I'll be glad to. So I had the waiter bring my food over there and we sat there and we ate and we conversated, found out we had a lot in common. We like to play tennis. We both were into music. We loved jazz and, we just drank some wine, and I forgot which eyeball was the wrong fake eyeball. She had that, I didn't know which eye to look at. She had that Sammy Davis Jr. thing going. I didn't know which eye to look at. But anyway, after we had dinner and drank some wine, I said, I need to get on back to campus. It's Friday night. I don't really have nothing to do. She said, I'll be glad to give you a ride. I said, cool, because I caught the bus. And we in a car riding, and she said, would you like to stop by my apartment and see my jazz collection? I said, sure, I'll be glad to stop by there and see your jazz collection. So we went up to her place, and she showed me her jazz collection. She's put on some jazz, and we drank some more wine, and we danced a little bit, and I'm not going to go into details, but the next morning, she made breakfast for me. And as I was leaving, I turned to her, and I said, I have to ask you a question. Do you treat every man like you treated me last night the first time you meet him? She looked at me and she said, no, baby, but you just happened to catch my eye. So the storytelling journey for me has been very good. I've met a lot of great people, even right here in Hampton. Every city I go to, I meet fabulous people. But I met some good folks that, celebrities and stuff that I became close friends with. One of them was Michael Jordan. I played golf with him a few times. And the first time I played golf with him, I was like, dang, man, I just got through playing golf with Michael Jordan. He just won a national championship, the first one. So I went home and I said, shoot, I got a pencil and paper and wrote, I spent the day with MJ. We had a lot of fun. We hit some balls down narrow halls under a hot, hot sun. After pursuing pars, we hopped in cars and went to my parents' house where we shoveled food, belly washers too, down hungry and thirsty mouths. We shot some pool and cut the fool, sat down to a table of cards, played bid whist, trying not to miss like we did those birdies and pars. We told some lies, 6-0, and before goodbyes, we posed for a picture or two. The flash still on our grin, we said, let's do it again, for the chance to get even was due. I spent the day with MJ, not once did he take off and fly. Although he's Air Jordan in basketball in life, he's just a down-to-earth and a heck of a nice guy. Wow. I never told him that poem either, never sent it to him. Also, I met a guy, I did a program one time in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we were co-grand marshals in a parade. It was Muhammad Ali. And I spoke after the thing and spoke at a banquet that night, and we got to be, he liked me and wanted me to start traveling with him. So I did. I started going to fights, and next thing I know, I was in charge of Champ Cookies. I was trying to sell his cookies that a friend of ours in D.C., Ali Khan, had produced. And so it was called Champ Cookies. They had his picture on there. So my job was to sell Muhammad Ali's cookies in the Southeast and all the grocery stores, which was a tough nut to crack because the black Muslim cookie and the Piggly Wiggins in the South is pretty tough. So, but anyway, we got to be clear. And so the story that I memorized for him when I knew I was going to be at the banquet performing in front of him was a Dunbar piece, but I set it up like this. I said, I've been knowing Muhammad Ali since we grew up together. We was little kids. And, he always thought he was bad. He thought he was, a fighter before he became Muhammad Ali. And our nickname for him was Ezekiel Johnson. We called him Zeke Johnson because he thought he was like Jack Johnson. So that's how I set the story up. And this is how the story went. One night, 'twas fair, you'll all agree, I got Eliza's company. And leaving Ezekiel in the lurch, I went trotting off with her to church. Just as we had took our seat, Eliza looking fair and sweet. Well, I just could not help but grin when Ezekiel come a-bouncing in as fierce as the law allows. He just been up to Liza's house to find her gone, then come to church. I got to back up. I'm in the middle of the story. 'Twas 33 years ago when I was rather young, you know, I had my last and only fight about a girl one summer night. It was me and Ezekiel Johnson. Zeke and me been spatting about a week, each of us trying his best to show that he was Liza Jones's beau. We neither couldn't prove the thing because she was fur too sharp to fling one over for the other one, and by so doing stopped the fun that we po chaps didn't have the sense to see she got at our expense, but that's the way a fella does, for boys is fools and always was. And when there's females in the game, well, I reckon they's about the same. Well, Zeke and me went on that way, fussed and quarreled day by day, while Liza minded not the fuss, just kept her going with both of us. Till we po chaps, that's Zeke and me, was just plumb mad with jealousy. Well, for a time we kept our places and only showed by frowning faces and looks that well our meaning boded how full of fight we both was loaded. At last it come, the thing broke out, and this is how it come about. One night, 'twas fair, you'll all agree, I got Eliza's company. And leaving Ezekiel in the lurch, I went trotting off with her to church. And just as we had took our seat, Eliza looking fair and sweet, well, I just could not help but grin when Ezekiel come a-bouncing in as furious as the law allows. He'd just been up to Liza's house to find her gone, then come to church to have this end put to his search. Well, I guess I laughed that meeting through. And not a mortal word I knew of what that preacher preached or read or what that choir sung or said. 'Cause every time I turned my head, I couldn't scarcely help but see Ezekiel had his eye on me. And he'd have sort of turn and twist and grind his teeth and shake his fist. I laugh a lot. The whole church seen us, know that something was between us. Well, meeting out, we started home. I sort of feeling what would come. We just got out when up stepped Zeke and said, "Excuse me, but I want to speak to you a minute." "Sir," said I, nudging Liza on the sly, and laughing in my sleeve with glee, I asked her please to pardon me. We walked away a step or two just to get out of Liza's view. Then Zeke said, "I want to know if you think you're Liza's beau, and I'm not gonna let her go home with such a chump as you." And I said, "Beau, you bet I do." Then Ezekiel sneered said that he did not want to hinder me. But then he allowed the girl was his, and that he guessed he knowed his biz. And that he wasn't fair to all my kin with all my friends and chums throwed in. Now some other thing he mentioned there, that no born man could no ways bear or think of trying to calmly stand. Even Ezekiel had been the biggest man in town and not that little runt. Time of labor ever stunt. And so I let my fist go bam. Thought I most not finished him. But Ezekiel, he didn't take it so. He just ducked down and dodged my blow. And then he come back at me so hard, well, I guess I must have hurt the yard. Or split the grass plot where I fell, and sakes alive, it hurt me. Well, it wouldn't have been so bad, you see, but that boy just kept hitting me, and I hit back and kicked and pawed, but seems was mostly air I clawed, while Ezekiel used his science well, of making every motion tell. He hit and punched, why goodness land, seemed like the boy had a dozen hands. Well, after a while, they stopped the fuss, and someone kindly parted us. All beat and cuffed and clawed and scratched and needing both our faces patched. Each started home a different way. And what Eliza do you say? Why, Eliza, little humbug, darn her, 'cause she'd gone home with Hiram Turner. The rivals. I have notes now in my memory, I tell you. But I'm proud of myself. I went in a room the other day, and I was so proud that I remember why I went in that room. It was the bathroom, but that still counts, right? I was talking about Paul Dunbar's mother today, Matilda Glass Jane Murphy Dunbar, and she was from Lexington, Kentucky. And I was talking to someone about her. She was from Lexington, and there was a story called Possum Trot. I was in Lexington, Kentucky performing, and I told this story, Possum Trot, and everybody was laughing like crazy. And I asked them afterwards, I said, I never get that response from this story. Why? They said, the little town of Possum Trot, about 2 miles up the road. So I went to see it, and it's just a crossroad there. But anyway, this is the story, Possum Trot. I've traveled around considerable and meeting folks and things, and I've learned a little other sense what meeting people brings. But in spite of all my traveling and all I think I know, I got one notion in my head that I can't get to go, and that is that the folks I meet in any other spot ain't half as good as them I know back home at Possum Trot. I know you never heard the name, it ain't a famous place, and if you ever searched the map, you couldn't find a trace of any such locality as this I've named to you. But never mind, I know the place, and I love it dearly too. It don't make no pretensions of being great or fine. The circus don't come that way. There ain't no railroad line. It ain't no great big city where the schemers plan and plot, but just this little settlement, this place called Possum Trot. Now, don't you think the folks that lived in that outlandish place was ignorant of all the things that stood for sense of grace? Why, there was Hannah Dyer. You could search this teeming earth and never find a sweeter girl or one of greater worth. And Uncle Abner Williams, leaning on his staff, seemed like I could hear him talk and hear his hearty laugh. While his heart was big and cheery as a sunny acre lot. That's the kind of folks we had back home at Possum Trot. Good times? Well, now to suit my taste. And I'm some hard to suit. I ain't seen no such pleasure since and won't see none to boot. With husking bees at harvest time and dances later on and singing school and taffy pulls and fun from night till dawn. Revival come in the wintertime, baptizing in the spring. I wish you'd seen them people shout and heard them pray and sing. I wish you'd seen old Parson Brown a giving gospel shot amongst the saints and sinners in the days of Possum Trot. We live up in the city now. My wife was bound to come. And all I hear me round day by day is endless stir and hum. I reckon that it done me good and yet it done me harm that oil was found so plentiful down there on my old farm. We got a new style preacher. Our church is new style too. And I've come down from what I've known to rent a cushioned pew. But like this, when I'm sitting there, it's like something like it's not that I get to thinking of them benches in the church at Possum Trot. I know that I was ungrateful and such thoughts must be a sin, but I guess to wishing that the times was back again with the huskings and the frolics and the things I used to know when I lived on that settlement dozens of years ago. I don't get this way often. I mean, I'm seldom ever glum, for life has taught me how to take her chances as they come. But now and then my mind goes back to that old burying plot that holds the dust of some I loved back there at Possum Trot. I got 3 minutes. We started 7 minutes late. Okay. This was a request. If you were at my show today, the Dunbar Show, I did this at the end of the show. I talked about everybody remembers when Barack Obama was elected president? Yes. You remember that day? Woo! First time. I'm talking the first time. Man, it was like euphoric. It was the whole world was partying. It was like, oh my God, we finally made it. We finally got over this BS. We got over. And so it was. I was on a conference call with my parents and my kids, and my parents were saying we never thought we'd see it in our lifetime. I was saying I thought I'd never see it in my lifetime. My kids were saying they never thought they'd see it in their lifetime. But here we had an African-American president of the United States of America by the name of Barack Obama. Talk to me. Barack Hussein Obama, thank you. So I was just over the moon, man. I took a shot and just, I'm like, dude, what's up? So anyway, I wrote this piece, and I called it The Election Slide. 3 o'clock in the morning. Couldn't go to sleep. Y'all heard about the electric slide, right? This is the election slide. The ancestors are dancing with the living. Even those whose decision it was to drown in the Atlantic are ecstatically sliding electionally on the ocean's floor to a syncopathic Babatunde African drum beat with a spattering of Ella scattering while Negro spirituals sing back. Up on drums is Roach, Max on piano with his Thelonious approach, Miles is on horn with Dizzy and Satchmo, chatting hypnotically is Geronimo, while Mr. Bojangles and Little Sammy and even old Uncle Ben and I ain't your mammy are smiling as they filing down the Soul Train line. This time is now, this time is here. Mud Deer and all those who feared the dogs and the hoses and the whips have a new dip in their hip and a new glide in their stride as they slide and move with the audacity of a hope groove, realized while singing the chorus, yes we can and yes we did, as a new day dawns over pyramids with the prophecy fulfilled. We are the ones we have been waiting for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch. That was awesome. Okay, I just want to say every artist in here has asked me not to introduce them, to just say their name. But I think it's important for you all to know how awesome our tellers are in other areas, not just in storytelling. They are very awesome in storytelling. As he walks over with his shoulder slumped. Yeah. So anyways, I'm going to say their stuff. All right. Andy Offutt Irwin is our next artist. He's a storyteller, theater director, singer, songwriter, Shakespearean actor. Andy was artist in residence at Emory University's Oxford College from 1991 to 2007. He's performed at LaGuardia High School of Performing Arts in New York, the Library of Congress, Walt Disney World, and a whole mess of theaters, colleges, and festivals all over the United States. Andy lives in Covington, Georgia. He thinks he's funny. And so do I. Welcome, Andy Offutt Irwin.
You had to end with something poignant. I'm going to mess that up. I had a friend of me when I was a kid. I grew up in a period that sociologists call feral childhood. We rode our bikes without helmets. I was visiting my sister a few years ago. My dad was there, and she lives in a gated neighborhood where my car's not allowed to be visible, and they have covenants and stuff. And my niece had left her bike next door, and my sister said, "Go get your bike." And she said, "Fine, I'm gonna." And it was 30 feet away. I mean, each blade of grass is hand cut, and my dad said, "Morgan, put on your helmet." I said, "Dad, she's going across cushions of grass for 30 feet. Besides, when we were kids, we didn't have helmets." He said, "We didn't know about helmets." I said, "You didn't know if our head hit the asphalt and bust open?" He said, "We didn't care." And if you're like me, you grew up with the Oldsmobile. That was a 9-passenger car, 3 in the back, 3 in the middle. There are only 2 shoulder harnesses. That's for mom and dad because the kids are expendable. 12 ashtrays. But I had a friend of me named Ed. Ed and I were frenemies, and we were frenemies because our mothers made us play together because they were friends, and we had to ride our bikes to school, sans helmet, of course. And Ed came by, and then we rode our bikes to school. We were riding our bikes back. It was in the autumn, and Ed wanted to make sure we went by Mr. Henderson's house, and Mr. Henderson was a deer hunter, and he was a bow and arrow deer hunter, and he was always camoed up. Because he said, "I got to be wearing what I'm going to be hunting in so I'll know my motion." And I don't know where he found it, but he had a styrofoam deer, kind of like that person over there, but it was a deer. And he would be out there, zip, zip, like totally pulverizing this deer, and it made little flurries of styrofoam flakes, like the last scene of Edward Scissorhands. It was beautiful. And we were stopping on our bikes, and we were watching him. I mean, as I said, he was camoed up. I mean, he was camoed to the teeth. I mean, he painted his teeth green. And we said, "Hey, Mr. Henderson, how you doing, boys? You getting ready for deer season?" "That's right, boys." "And y'all going hunting this year?" By the way, we were 8 years old. Everybody say 8 years old. 8 years old. Ed said, "Yeah, my daddy gave me a 30-30 for my birthday." "Andy, you going hunting?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "That's too bad. Probably end up in the band." So we watched him shoot up the deer, and then we made our way home. And my house was on a high hill, and it wasn't paved. The driveway wasn't paved, and it was paved with what's called number 4s, which are like baseball-sized rocks. And Ed said, "Hey, Irwin." You know, when kids 8 years old see violence, they want to be violent. "We're going to have a rock fight." I said, "What?" He said, "We're going to have a rock fight right now." Now, Ed was a pitcher when we played Little League. I was a right fielder. Some of you understand that in Little League, you know. So Ed's like winding up, zoop, pow, catches me in the small of the neck, zoop, pow, ow, shoot. I'm picking up as many rocks as I can and going, and they went 4 feet and dropped. And he's like chasing me up my driveway, pow, up my driveway, pow, ow, pow, ow. "You better stop it, pow, 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 pow." And he rode off. I got in the house, I was crying. My mom said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Nothing." She said, "Did you have a fight with Ed?" I said, "No." She said, "Go wash your face." Because mamas love it when you wash your face after you cry. And then every time this sort of thing happened, she sat me down on my bed, and she handed me a Coca-Cola in a 6.5-ounce Georgia green glass returnable bottle like God meant for them to be. You understand what I'm talking about, don't you, preacher? And then she handed me our cat, Bootsy. Now, you know that family's got like 30 cats in the yard? They're really irresponsible pet owners. They don't spay or neuter. That was us. And then she handed me the coat and hands me the cat. And then she peeked her head in the door, and she said, "Don't let Bootsy out. She's in season." Now, I've since learned that that's a regional term, but y'all understand that, right? Which means she's in her moon time. Well, I wasn't going to let Bootsy out if she was in season. If I did, Mr. Henderson would try to kill her. Four years later, how old am I now, boys and girls? Wow. Very good. Yes, so I was 12 years old. This deer, Little Covington, Georgia, this is before mercury lights, this is before sodium vapor lights, this is before LED. There were 2 incandescent lights on the northeast corner and the southwest corner trying to make it to Christmas. It was after 11 o'clock at night, so the stoplights had gone to sleep. Red and yellow, red and yellow, red and yellow. A deer comes wandering into Covington, Georgia, into our town. Gets in front of the Belks. Do y'all have Belks here? No? Okay. Well, in the Deep South, that's where old people buy their clothes. And the deer sees itself in a mirror in front of the little department store, you know. And, you know, he's a southern gentlemanly kind of deer. He's going, "How you doing? How you doing?" And the deer in the mirror is like mocking him. "How you doing? How you doing? You can move on now. You want some of this? I got 8 points right here. You want some of this?" Through the glass. And then the ambulance comes. The police come. The fire department comes. Well, actually, no ambulance. It was the hearse. That's how old I am. Children, I'm so old that the ambulance was the hearse when I was a kid. What's a hearse? So they're all standing there, and of course they're watching the deer run through this department store, this clothing store, you know, and it's tearing up stuff, and the police were powerless because all they had were guns. and it was bow season. So the chief went to the radio, said, "Give me Jake Henderson here." Mr. Henderson, the deer hunter, the bow hunter, he was at home watching an Ironside marathon all night long. Yes, he didn't know he was a Quincy Jones fan. That's fine. Take my line away from me, Sheila. Anyway. Fine. And he answered the phone. You know, it rang. Yes. I understand. Now, this is in the 70s, so he had to go to his closet. He opened the Luan door, and luckily his wife had recently been shopping at that very Belks, and he pulled himself camo for the Belks. It was powder blue leisure suit with lapels you could land an L1011 on. He dons that, buttons it up, takes 15 minutes, puts his gear in the truck, goes to the Belks. The fire department moves, the police move, Mr. Harwell from the funeral home moves, and he goes through and he's stalking the deer in the Belks. Sees the deer, thwack, whoosh, boom, pa, takes out the deer. Sorry, animals are harmed in the making of this story. Well, the Belks, was a big mess. So they had to have like after deer sale at Belks, come sample our damaged goods. It was like a big spread in our local paper. And it has like, the deer, the clip art of the deer here, the hunter here, those mysterious pants on men that don't wrinkle and some nice ladies wear. And they put some dumpsters behind the Belks, and they're like throwing out these 1940s and 50s fiberglass mannequins. I don't mean to offend you, and I'm sorry. We're throwing out these mannequins, and Ed came by on his Schwinn Stingray bike, and there are mannequins in a dumpster, and he's 12 years old. I'm 12 years old. If you're 12 years old and you're a kid and you see dumpsters full of mannequins, you got to take a couple. And a Stingray will accommodate 2 mannequins, the bananas if you pedal in front. And Ed came up with an evil idea. Now, in Georgia, it's a state law for every town of a certain size to have an abandoned antebellum home on the outskirts of town. It's true. And ours was the Patterson House. And the Patterson House was this house where the people got a divorce in the 50s before it was cool. And it was just falling. And there was a light bulb, and then the porch fell in. And it had been abandoned about 12 years by the time we were 12 years old. And we would go there sometimes on the weekends. We'd have to make our way through the kudzu to get there. And we'd take our friends and try to scare them. Under the Good Morning Dear stairway, it was a big grand place, was a Steinway grand piano. Because Mrs. Patterson just left everything when the last kid graduated from high school. And I would go up to that piano every time, and I would play Your Enchanting Young Charms. Now, if you don't know that song, that's the song that Yosemite Sam was trying to get Bugs Bunny to play in the cartoons, because he put dynamite in that C right there. And I know I'm going kind of classical on you, so I hope you can handle this. Except on this piano, it went. I did that every time I went into the Patterson House. So what Ed did is, on my bike, which was not a Schwinn Stingray, it was a cheap economy auto version. We rode our bikes to school. I had run into class. He tarried back. He took some parchment paper. He took his Cub Scout pocket knife. He cut his finger. Yes, they used to let 8-year-olds have knives. And he wrote in blood, "Come to the Patterson House after school today if you dare, squeeze." I took it after school. He was already gone. I cut it off with my Cub Scout pocket knife. He had put some baling twine around it. "Come to the Patterson House today." This is Ed's blood writing. I don't have to if I don't want to. But if I don't, he'll tell other people, and I will be humiliated in front of my peers. So what Ed had done is he had gone to the Patterson house. He had climbed the roof, which is Georgia for climb. He had put one of those mannequins in a fishing wader. He had put rocks and stuff in it. He had tied it in front of the chimney, right in front of where the piano is. And then I walked in to the Patterson house. Ed, did you put that note on my bike, man? Ed, are we going to scare somebody? We're going to scare Ann Crudup? And I went to the piano and I played. Ed was on the roof. He heard the piano. He cut the mannequin. It went through the attic, moved to the second floor. Bam! Right on the piano in front of me. This frightened me. I went running out. I went through what had been a Tiffany glass window. I got on my bike. I'm riding. I hear from the roof, "Hey, I got you, man!" And then I realized what had happened. It was the first time in 4 or 3 years I was just mad. I was so mad. You know, we had been so mad you cried. And I got home, and my mama said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Nothing." She said, "Did you have a fight with that?" I said, "No." She said, "Wash your face." She sat me on the bed, and she handed me a can of Coke. It wasn't the same. And then she handed me our 12-year-old, never-been-spayed cat. And then she poked her head in the door, and she said, "Don't let Bootsy out. She's in season." But I was 12 years old. I knew what that meant. So I came up with an idea, and I waited until I knew Ed was home. I called him up. I only have 17 minutes. I have to skip that part. Ed always answered, "Speak to me." I said, "Ed, that was pretty funny, man. Where did Patterson have? Man, you were riding home to your mama with tears in your ears." "No, I just wanted you not to be disappointed from your efforts." "You know what I'm doing tonight?" "What are you doing tonight?" Now, the cemetery was right behind my house. Now, there was a fence that bisected my fence of the house, and so on the northern part of that fence was the African-American cemetery. It had never had perpetual care as the white people did, because that was before the black dead mattered. It's the only place where I can do that line. And but on the south part of that was where they had torn down like 4 houses to bury white people that would die in the 80s. That was like our ball field. That's where we played. We played baseball there. The first person to go there was Howard Brooks. His wife buried him right on first base. She didn't know why there was this right-angle path to and from his headstone. I said, "You know what I'm doing tonight?" "What are you doing tonight?" "I'm spending the night in the cemetery." "You ain't done it." "I am doing it." "I'll do it if you do it. I'll do it if you do it." "Fine, fine, fine, fine." "Ask your mama," I said, "ask your mama if you can spend the night tonight." "Can I spend the night at Andy's tonight?" "If it's okay with his mama." She said, "It's okay with your mama." And then I turned and said, "Hey, Mama, I'm going to spend the night in the cemetery tonight. Have Ed come over. We're going to call all our Boy Scout friends and all our baseball playing friends, and we're going to have a big party in the cemetery. Is that all right?" My mama said, "Don't get caught." I had the cool mama. So we were able to gather about 12 people. And children, I'm sorry, this isn't me telling this story. This is everybody else telling this story. So we're telling those stories. We had a votive candle on Howard Brooks' headstone because a campfire would have been indiscreet. And we're telling stories, right? They're going around stories. And Ed said, "Yeah, man, what they did, they went down to the Alcovy River, you know, where all those stone pillars are, where Sherman burned the bridge down. And then my daddy said it was the Army engineers that made those pontoon bridges. But they left one of those Union soldiers out in the woods to guard, and they took up the bridges. And that soldier's still out there, and this boy and girl went out there parking. They went out parking. He wanted to show her those pillars. And then She said, "You better leave the lights on." So he left the lights on while they were in that car, and the lights started to dim, and he turned that key, and it sounded like Sheila's dad's car. Kick, 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 kick. And the battery was died. He said, "You wait here, honey, but remember, he's out there. You don't open the door unless you hear me call your name. I'm going to go get somebody to jump us off. It's like 2 miles up this road." So he went up there, and she went to sleep on the seat, because you could sleep on a whole long sleep back in those days, seat. And she didn't hear anybody call her name. She went to sleep, and then there was banging on the car, but nobody called her name, and the banging slowed down. And then the deputy came. He said, "Don't look, honey," but she did, and it was her boyfriend, and there were bloody handprints all over the car. That's the story Ed was saying. And I said, "Man, my daddy said that happened in Monroe when he was a kid." "No, man, it's true." And we're all going around, and Ed looks at me, and everybody looks at me, and they're all pointing. "Y'all, Irwin, you're always telling stories. Tell us a story." I said, "I don't have any stories tonight, boys. All I have is the truth." Go down the road there, go to the northern part of the cemetery. And this was my backyard, y'all. I knew the cemetery. And the stars had aligned for me because it was October the 12th. And I knew that there was a grave, there was a plot with pea gravel. You ever seen a plot with pea gravel where people don't want the grass to come through? That's where I played with my Tonka trucks. It was the Picket Baby. Sometimes my mom would get tired of me. She'd throw 2 Tonka trucks at me and say, "I'm sick of you. Go play with the Picket Baby." It's the truest part of the story. And so there was a plot with pea gravel. And I said, "Go over there. There's a baby grave where that gravel plot is. There's no other grave there. Tell me when that baby died." And they all hiked over there, and I waited, and they hiked back. I said, "When that baby died?" Ed said, "October 12th. 1930. I said, "That's right." And this is he said October 13th, 1930. And I said, "Tonight is October 12th. And at midnight, it'll be October 13th. And at midnight, that baby will come back to life. And all the babies in the cemetery will come together for a great big Death Day party." Ed said, "Ain't done it." I said, "Is do it." So everybody went to sleep. And then I had my mama's baby Ben travel alarm clock in my pillow. The trifold kind. Ding, click. And I went back to the house. And I said, "Giddy, giddy, 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 giddy." Bootsy's in season. And I took her out. I took her out to the Picket Baby's grave, and I tossed her. And I said, "Be fruitful." And at 4 minutes after midnight, so I grabbed my foot. "Hey, Earl, what's that?" "Oh, that's the Picket Baby." There's more of them. 10 bicycles. Revenge!
Thank you, Andy. Okay, thank you so much. So, our third artist sharing stories with us this evening is one of the co-founders of this festival, Jay Johnson. Thank you, Jay. Now, prior to becoming a professional storyteller, Jay, whose given name is Janice, but she goes by Jay, spent most of her professional life working in youth development organizations, most notably the Girl Scouts of America. She was the first African-American Girl Scout to serve as president of a council's senior planning board. As an adult, she joined the staff at Girl Scouts of the USA, where she was the right-hand support staff person for Gloria Scott, the first black Girl Scout USA president. Jay's experience in membership and management led her to the position of executive director of the Girl Scouts of Western Reserve in Akron, Ohio. Following her role as a professional Girl Scout, Jay returned to her home on the Virginia Peninsula and worked for the city of Hampton, where she was involved in Hampton's Citizen Unity Commission and the Hampton Coalition for Youth. She also spent 6 years as chairperson of the board of directors for Virginia Organizing, along with Sheila. I do know this person, and I know how to say her name. She's my mentor, and I love her dearly. And her name is Sheila Arnold. Sorry about that. Along with Sheila Arnold, Jay co-founded the Hampton Storytelling Festival because she wanted to do something meaningful for her hometown, and she wanted to be sure that her dash meant something. Jay says they named the festival and the events associated with it. Everybody's got a story. Exactly. Everyone does. She thinks of herself as a newly minted storyteller whose only regret is that she didn't earlier. Okay. Jay lives in Newport News. Let's help welcome. Sorry, she lives in Hampton. The website was wrong. She lives in Hampton. Very sorry.
To show you what your intentions are. I had no intentions of stepping on that thing to get on this stage. But here I am. Thank you. It was the time of Bull Connor and George Wallace, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, lunch counter sit-ins, bus boycotts, freedom riders, murders of civil rights workers, Emmett Till, burnings of churches, and bombings. It was a time that when we look back on it now, we think and talk about it as though it all occurred within about 2 years. Believe it or not, the happenings of those times occurred over a 10-year period. It was an era of pain, disillusionment, and horror. It was also the time when the presidents of Negro colleges, later to be called HBCUs, were in a tightrope between the parents and the boards of directors who wanted those students to be safe. Safe to them meant on the campus, not in jail, and alive. While at the same time, on the other end of that tightrope, were the students who were demanding that they be allowed to fight for their freedom, to be part of the civil rights movement. It was a time when the president of Tuskegee Institute, a very prestigious college, was having his own battle with parents and students. And so he engaged in psychological warfare with his students. He demanded, he threatened, he coerced, he did everything he could to keep those students on campus. At the meantime, the students were doing everything they could to be a part of the civil rights movement. So the president, Dr. Luther P. Foster, Jr., decided that he would bring onto the campus of Tuskegee the same civil rights, the same nonprofit training that had been taking place at the church in town for years. The students celebrated. The president has acquiesced. He's getting it. He sees what we want. But did they find that out? That when the training was over, the president was back to his old place. Except now he added, if they got into town in Tuskegee or Montgomery, that they would be suspended. They didn't know that yet. The first student to sign up for the training in nonviolence was Bobby Burke. Bobby was now a senior from Richmond, Virginia. She had come to the college from a very prestigious all-girls high school in Asheville, North Carolina, called Allen. And when she graduated from that high school, she wanted to attend UCLA. Her family, though, had decided that she should go either to Spelman or to Tuskegee. And Bobby decided she'd had enough of girls' schools. She was going somewhere where there were men. So Tuskegee was her choice. And the men were really kind of happy to make the decision. Here was a girl that walked like she had $1 million. She was slender, but all her curves were in the right places. The guys liked her a lot. And she liked being with the guys. She had beautiful eyes, and she had a smile that could walk a man across the room. Talking to her, something silly or something very serious. And a lot of them tried to cross that line. You know, this was a woman that they should have lives. And Bobby said, oh, no. Because her high school had reinforced her mother's training. You don't let your friends, male or female, pick you. You pick them. Okay? So Bobby made it very clear to these potential romantic men that they had a choice of being a buddy or nothing. And they chose to be buddies. So by and by, the women started looking at this girl, and you know how we are. Well, who is this fancy woman that has this entourage of men following her all over the campus? She must think she's all of that. I don't know. I'm not going to like her one bit. But then, you know what? They found out that Bobby was actually a pretty nice girl. And she was a fiercely loyal friend. And not only that, Bobby found out where all the juke joints were. And she knew which days the men in town got paid. And so on the days when the men in town got paid, she invited the co-eds to come with her to the juke joints, where they had all the beer and all the dances that they could handle. And until they realized they needed to get back to Tuskegee before curfew. So that was what was going on when, as her parents had realized that Bobby would probably go to college, and they expected her to turn out a little bit, but not quite this much. And so the registrar looked at Miss Burke's grades, and he compared her grades to her entrance exam. And he informed her family that Miss Burke was not quite living up to her academic potential. Well, then the partying slowed down quite a bit. But that was all right, because by that time, Bobby Burke was the queen of the campus. She was the first one to sign up for nonviolent training. Because since she came to Tuskegee, she had had some experiences she hadn't had in Richmond, Virginia. She had seen people living in shacks with bricks and cinder blocks holding up the corners of houses. She's seen houses that didn't have windows, that just had shutters, no panes, no curtains. She had seen big tubs in the yard that either, people bathed in or washed clothes in, and one day you go by and there was all this tattered clothing on the line. Another day you would go by and there were these white sheets that she expected that the family had cleaned for their white customers. Every sign around her in that county showed poverty. She hadn't seen that in Richmond, but she was sure that it existed in Richmond. The difference was that the family protected her from poverty. They protected her from the segregation and the discrimination was going on. So when Bobby realized the places she was seeing, where some of them were owned by the Governor Wallace himself, she was really mad. And she was also upset that people could be living like this in 1956. Why? And why were they her people? And Bobby said, I have to do something about this. And so, hey, nonviolent training is good enough for Martin Luther King, good enough for me too. So I'm going to go to training. And so she did. The first day was fine. They talked about the philosophy of nonviolence training and how you could use it in your life and in the protest march. And that was, hey, okay, the first day. The second day was a totally different situation. Because on the second day, they had to simulate being at the lunch counters. And at the lunch counters, you had to take whatever was happening. And each of those students sitting at the lunch counter on those stools had a student behind them pretending to be a white person. And those white people were to pour ketchup and mustard and call you names and all of the things that might happen to you at a lunch counter, they had to practice. And that's what they were doing. And the seats were real close. And Bobby had gone there, and she tried to remember on the way that her grandmother had said to her, Bobby, whatever you do in life, you must act out of love, not hate, because she knew Bobby had a temper. And she had tried all of her young life to hear her grandmother. But as she sat at that lunch counter and she was listening to the words around her and feeling the motion, and the white person around her bumped her once, bumped her again, twice, bumped her the third time really hard, and Barbie's hand came up, not as a shield, but as a weapon. And the trainer said, oh, no, pull you out. No, Miss Burke, you can't do this. She started saying, well, give me another chance, give me another chance. No, she realized that that was not for her. That was not something she could do. So she went back to her dorm, and on the way she thought, darn, I just flunked nonviolence training. And actually about 2 or 3 weeks later, Bobby Burke could have been in the psych lab. Bobby Burke could have been in her room studying. Bobby Burke, certainly if she was going to be anywhere, should have been at choir rehearsal practicing, because she was the lead soprano soloist for the concert choir. And they were going to be giving performances in New York at Radio City Music Hall. And that was a biggie. You're going to a black college and you're going to give performances in New York? Wow. Bobby Burke was not in any of those places. She was in downtown Tuskegee with 30 other students from Tuskegee Institute in their own protests. And they were in a line walking 2 by 2, and Bobby was bringing up the rear by herself with a sign and singing "Freedom Now." Oh, freedom. And everybody's walking along, and they're in front of the department store, and some of the kids have gone around the corner, and all of a sudden the line stopped. Across the street were all these white people who were jeering at them the whole time. And so Bobby's thinking to herself, I don't know why I agreed to do this. I don't know why I told Eugene I would do this. We're not supposed to be off campus doing this, and I don't know. But he said it would only take a half hour. We're going to march down here and stand in front of the courthouse, and he and this other guy are going to give a little speech, and then we're going to go back. 30 minutes back to the campus, okay. But when the line stopped, and Bobby peeked around the corner, there was a sheriff with a bullhorn and a rifle. There were deputies with hoses, and there were other deputies with dogs. And in that one moment when the jeering stopped and everything was quiet, Bobby said, oh. And sure enough, the sheriff said, okay, niggers, you need to go back where you came from, right now. And before anybody could move, he put his hand down, and the dog started barking, and the water started out of hoses, and kids were sliding down walls and rolling along the sidewalks, and white people was going like jeering like it was a football game and having fun. And Bobby said, my body will not handle this. And Bobby dropped that sign and she ran back to campus as fast as her feet could take her, and she did not look to see who was behind her. She totally left the protest. She got to the campus, she stood outside the choir rehearsal hall, she wiped herself off, took her jacket off, looked back to see where her fellow protesters were, coming to the campus little by little, wet, but everybody seemed to be all right. She went into the room and she acknowledged to the choir master that she was late, and she, apologized and sat down. And her seatmate, knowing where she had been, kind of lifted her eyebrows like, no. And Bobby sat there and they started to tune up to whatever they're going to sing. And she was thinking, I've flunked nonviolence, I've flunked protest. I'm really not very good at this. I just don't know what I'm going to do, right? And she started to sing, but then she stopped and she thought about that training. That on the first day, the trainer had said, there's some people who are not people who sit at lunch counters. There's some people who can't do the marching, and they're not those people. There's some people who plan, who never are out on the front. They're the people who plan and strategize what needs to happen for the rest of us to go forward. There's some people who have to do that because that is the way that the rest of us get to do what has to happen out there. And Bobby said, that is who I am. I am a planner. I know how to do this. I know how to motivate people. I know how to operate. I know how to lay out things where people just come and they do it. That's where I need to be. And that's what I'm going to do. And for the rest of her life, Bobby Burke was what we call a race woman. And she led people beyond where they ever thought they would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. That was awesome. Okay. Anybody else having a good time? That's awesome, isn't it? Okay. Powerful stories. Thank you all so much. Our next artist is Darcy Tucker. Darcy is an author, a playwright, a historian, an actress, and a storyteller who lives in Williamsburg. She portrays more than 20 women from American history and performs in venues nationwide. She literally wrote the book on how to portray people from history and literature. I've actually read that book. She really did write that book. And she trains teachers and museum professionals to teach through storytelling and character interpretation. She's a veteran museum educator, was founding director of a character interpretation program at a Tennessee university, and consults for museums and municipalities who want to improve their visitors' experiences. She received a Mount Vernon Research Fellowship to turn her original one-woman play, Revolutionary Women, into a book for middle grade readers. She will be portraying a Revolutionary War soldier. Deborah Sampson. Thank you. Our next artist is the other co-founder of the Hampton Storytelling Festival. Sheila Arnold has a talent for storytelling, a passion for history, and compassion for people. She provides storytelling, historic character presentations, Christian monologues, and professional development for schools, festivals, churches, and organizations nationally and internationally. As I just said, she's a co-founder of this. She's also the co-founder and artistic director for Artists Standing Strong Together, a source of inspiration, strength, and action in storytelling and artist world. She and the other co-founder started that during the pandemic, and I have to say it was a lifeline for so many artists. So thank you for that, Sheila. Sheila has been honored as a 2025 Monticello Research Fellow, a 2021 McDowell Artist Fellow, a 2020 Mount Vernon Research Fellow, and a 2019 Hunoaks Artist Colony Summer Residence Noted Artist. She lives in Hampton, Virginia, near her son, her grandson, sons, and parents. Thank you, and let's welcome her.
Oh, that introduction just goes on and on and on. And I know it's a good thing, because Vaya is an amazing, amazing MC. I want to thank Vaya so much for doing that all day. She's consistent and she's conscientious, and she wants to make sure that we are given our dues. Amen. And that's a good thing. My dad would be happy. I'm doing something with my life, so that's good. Teacher. It's so good. I get to see some friends here who haven't been to a storytelling festival, some friends that have and that I have loved. Lynn Rollman, who was in our very first festival, is here. And Dylan Pritchett, who was in our first and second festival, is here. And so really thrilled about that. And then I have a young friend who I have known for way too long in her life. She was 3 years old when I met her. Tarina is here with us today. She's a filmmaker and doing some work. And I know Darcy and I were thrilled to see Kimberly Thomas with husband and children, because we knew her long before all that was happening. Amen. So what a great treat. And it's great that this community has the opportunity to come together. And then friends I get to see over and over and just meet those who are new, those who are old. So this one is for some young'uns. So we've got a couple of young'uns here. And so first thing you need to know is the little one on the floor is not going to bother me at all. Might bother somebody else, but not going to bother me, because that's my 4-year-old who got the joy of his life yesterday when Granddaddy called the tow truck. And he got to be there as the tow truck arrived. And I said, you got to see a tow truck? Uh-huh. And I said, what'd the tow truck do? Take Granddaddy's car. Can't get much better than that, to watch it take your own car away, somebody's car. So that bothers me not at all. But this one is not just for the young ones, because there's a little bit in there for us. Elena loved to dance. Elena loved to dance. She loved to dance in the morning. She loved to dance in the afternoon. She loved to dance in the evening. Elena would dance all day long if people would stop interrupting her day. Elena would get up in the morning. She would have her little radio on, and her father always said, you got to learn how to have some responsibility, baby girl. So with her little radio on, she would have it come on in the morning, the alarm would, and it was on that oldies but goodies station. So she would wake up to things like, stop in the name of love before you break my heart. And she'd wake up to it, stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Think it over. Think it over. And she would dance all the way to the bathroom. And as she was dancing, her mother would say, Elena, Elena, stop dancing. But Mama, I love dancing. Elena, wash up and get ready for school. Stop in the name of love before. Before you break my heart. She loved to dance. Well, she would put her clothes on, and she made sure she put on the right clothes, because she put on the wrong clothes, the clothes that Mama didn't approve of. She would go back upstairs, or she would go back in the room and put on all different clothes. So she made sure she put on the right clothes that Mama would approve of. And into the kitchen she walked. There, her dad left breakfast. He always had to leave early before the house because he was a dental hygienist. And so he would leave her oatmeal, and then he would leave her oatmeal, and he'd leave her a banana or a yogurt or something like that, and that's what she would have. And she would sit there and sit down. And there was Mommy, and Mommy had the baby and her little brother, in the high chair and was feeding him. And so she started to eat. But Mama got up and turned on the radio, and it was playing that music. The music with no words. And she had to get up. Elena, what? Sit down and eat your food. But Mom, I'm dancing. Sit down. All right. And so she'd eat her food. And then she got her coat and her book bag, which was filled up the night before with what she needed, and she went down those steps of her apartment out to the best dance floor there was, the sidewalk. And she started to do the election slide. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, back 2, 3, 4, dip down, turn around, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Elena, the bus is here, Elena, come on, the bus is here, Elena. It was her friends calling her. She could see the bus. I'm coming, I'm dancing. And so she went, Elena, come on, Elena. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Her foot would touch the step, and the bus driver would say, Elena, get on the bus. I am. 1, 2, Elena. Okay. So Elena would sit down, always by the window. She wanted to sit by the window because that way she could look out, and she could also hear the music that would pull up in the cars right beside her, and they would pull up, and they'd play some music, and she'd stand up. Oh, Elena, sit down. Okay. Oh, Elena, sit down. Okay. And that's what it was like the whole trip to school. And when she got to school, all she could think about was wanting to dance. All she could think about was, and yet she had to do school. It wasn't too bad, though. She was smart in all of her grades. She was smarter than all the boys in math and science, no matter what they thought. And she didn't mind history because they were learning about George Washington. Do you know George Washington could do a good waltz? Mm-hmm. Yes. But then it was PE. And they ran outside with Mr. Butler, their teacher. Mr. Butler let them use the boom box. For those of you who are not old enough to know what that is, that's a box like this that you put this thing, they call a cassette because they're so old they don't know what to do with themselves. And so they put it in and they press a button and it makes sound. But then you have to open it and turn it to the other side. A boom box. And so they would take out the boom box and they would turn it on and they would listen. They would listen and they would play it and they would hear, ain't nothing but a hound dog, da-doom-doom, crying all the time, da-doom-doom. Or they hear, he's bad, you know it. He's bad, you know it. And they would dance and dance. Oh, they danced and danced until the bell ring, ding. And Mr. Butler would come outside and said, all right, children, inside. And the girls would go, oh, we're dancing. And Mr. Butler would say, girls, tomorrow you will live to hear the king of rock and the king of pop one more time. And they'd get the box and under his arm go in. And then finally, it was time to go home. So she would get on the bus and sit near the window, and she'd hear the music, and she'd get up and down, sit down, Elena. Okay. Sit down, Elena. Okay. And finally, they were at her house. This time, she didn't stop at the sidewalk. No, she went straight in the house. She went straight up the stairs. She unlocked the door because she had the key. She unlocked the door, and she took off her coat and threw it on the floor. She took off her book bag, and she threw it on the floor, and she went straight into the living room with her finger sticking out like it was a wand, and she went straight over to the stereo to press the button, and Elena, what? Elena, how did you speak to me? I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Elena, you dropped your book bag and your coat. You need to go pick it up and close the door and take the key out. But Mom, I want to dance. Elena. Okay. And she picked up her book bag and put it away and put her coat away and took the key out of the lock and locked the door. And she started back into the living room with her finger out like a magic wand. And she was about, Elena, what? Elena, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. I need you to watch your brother for a little bit. Oh. See, I need you to watch your brother. I need to go take a shower. Ooh, you've been going around all day. You ain't taken no shower yet? Elena, I'm just saying. Elena, just watch your brother. Mama, I want to dance. I know, baby girl. I know. Teach your brother how to dance. She took a look at her brother in the playpen, and she thought, okay. And so her mother went to the shower, and she came to her brother. Hey, I'm going to teach you the very first dance I learned. And I'm going to tell you, I saw a storyteller not long ago. His name was David Novak. He has a story. I don't know the story, but I do know the dance, and that is what I'm going to teach you because I've been saying this in the story for a long time before I ever heard David say anything about this. And so she took her baby brother's arm and said, now we put our fingers together and we do this. Y'all can help me. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Her brother just laughed. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. She may have stretched his arms a little bit too wide. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. Maybe a little too wide. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the... Elena, what are you doing to your brother? Nothing. I'm never going to teach you anything again. Well, finally, her mom was out. And their mom asked her about homework, and she hadn't done it yet. And she knew she better do her homework right, because she didn't do it right. She didn't do the homework right. Well, her mom would make her do all the homework right and then make her sit there for another 15 minutes just 'cause. And finally, she handed them to her mom. Mom looked it over. Okay, baby girl. Go dance. And with her finger out like a wand, she went straight over to that music, and she went straight to that stereo, and she pressed the button to play the music her daddy loved. I said the hip hop, the hip to the hip hip hop, but don't stop the rocket to the bang bang, but jump the boogie to the rhythm to the boogie to the beat. Ow! What you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Old school hip hop. It's the Wild Wild West. Ah, it's a Wild Wild West. Ah, it's a Wild Wild West. It's a wild. You know, some of y'all don't know that. I like big butts and I cannot lie. And the brother's gonna take them back. Sorry, that got the best of me there. I did that to myself. That was right. And she danced and she danced and she danced until her daddy said, don't play that kind of music no more. No. She danced and she danced and she danced till daddy got home and danced with her, and they had dinner, and then it was bedtime and she slept well. The next morning she woke up to her mama saying, Elena, wake up. Elena stretched. And then she looked at the clock because she said, Mama, it's not school day today. It's Saturday. I know, Elena. It's your birthday. Oh, yeah. Happy birthday to me. Get up, Elena, and put on your dancing clothes. Exactly what Elena did. Sat straight up in the bed. She was wide awake now. Her mama never let her put on the dancing clothes. Never put on the dancing clothes. And because you see, the dancing clothes, they had some tights with a little hole that was right there. And then she had this little bodysuit that had a tiger that said, I am the star, with some stars that were really missing. And there was a hole over in the side. And she had a tutu, but it was different colors, but you didn't know because they were really faded and such. And her mama never let her wear it. So she got out of bed very quickly, and she put it on before her mama could change her mind. And she went down the stairs, but down the stairs, her little brother wasn't there, her daddy wasn't there. And her mama had a coat on already and had her coat ready and said, here you go, and gave her a go-gurt. If you have a child or grandchild, you know that is yogurt in the best form, in a way you can cut it up and say, eat, child. And you feel like you have fulfilled their nutritional requirements. I never added that to the story either. This is getting really good. And so she said, where's mommy? Where's daddy? Where's brother? It's just you and I. I'm going someplace special. They went down the stairs. They got into the van, the minivan. She climbed into the back of she climbed into that back seat, that middle seat, and climbed into her child's seat, locked herself in. And she ate her go-gurt as she watched Mama drive. The lights were beginning to go down. They were beginning to go away as the sun was coming up, but it was still a little dark. And they pulled in front of a theater, an old theater, one of those old theater that used to have film, but now it was a theater that they had changed to be a stage where they had music and storytellers and dancers that went on that stage. And so she pulled up front, and she was very excited, and she couldn't wait to get out, and her mama opened the door for the front, the side door, and she unbuckled herself and got out, and she started to walk to the front door, but her mama said, no, baby girl, come this way. It was an alley that was beside that theater. And she walked over to her mama, and mama said, we going this way. She said, okay. Because she had watched a lot of movies at night when she was not supposed to. And she knew what happened when you went down the alley. And she started to walk, and there was a light that was flickering. And she knew this story was not going to end well. It's okay, Mommy, we don't have to go to this place. I like my birthday at home. We can do this at home. No, baby, follow me. I don't like this idea. And they went up, and then she went up the stairs that were on the side of the building, and she knocked on the door. No, Mommy, don't do that, don't do that. And the door opened. What is it? And this man came out and looked at her, and then the man said, Laney, baby, come here, and wrapped her arms around her mama and kissed her. Oh, this man kissed her mama. She gonna tell daddy this? And then the man left and said, oh, is this little Elena? Come on in. And she was shooed inside in front of this man who was talking to her mother, and her mother was smiling in a way she had never seen. And so she was being pushed ahead, and then she turned her head, and she saw lights, and she didn't know, but those lights started to call to her. And so she left the sound of their voices, and she went to the light, and she left the sound of their voices, and she went to the light. And when she got to the light, there on the stage were dancers. And they were all in their dancing outfits. And they were jumping and moving, and they were dancing all over the place and stretching. And she turned around and said, "Mama." And her mama had sat down. The man was gone. Her mama had sat down on a bench, and her mama had taken off her coat. And her mama had dancing clothes. "Mom, you have dancing clothes." And the man came back right then with some water in his hands for the both of them. "Of course she does. She used to dance with us long ago, before she had a little girl named Elena." She looked at her mama in a way she never had. "Come on, baby girl, sit down. Take off your coat." She took off her coat, and as she did, her mama pulled from underneath that bench. She pulled out a box, and she put the box on the little girl's lap. "I've been watching you. I know you love to dance, and I know what you've wanted all your life." And the little girl, Elena, opened the box, and bright red dancing shoes. "Mom." And her mama opened a box of bright red dancing shoes. And that day, Elena and her mama put on their dancing shoes, and in their dancing outfits, they went upon the stage and they danced and stretched with the Alvin Ailey dancers. And when she got back in the car and she put her head back, Elena thought, one day I am going to be a dancer. And that's exactly what she did. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. So is anybody else sad that we're getting to the end? I'm sad. I'm sad. I'm excited to introduce the next teller, but I am sad that it's coming to an end. But guess what? That's exactly what I was going to say. We have tomorrow. The tellers will be telling again in the same place tomorrow from 2 to 4. Get here at 2 so you don't miss anything, or even 5 till. Don't come at 3 because you think it goes till 4. We start at 2. Come in then so you don't miss anything, okay? All right. Now, I told you at the beginning, but in case you came in late and you missed it, the tellers don't want me to say all these braggy things about them, but I'm doing it anyways because I want you all to know how awesome they are. I know that, but I want you to know it. This next teller, our last teller for this evening, is David Novak. Woohoo, it's right. David is a recipient of the Oracle Circle of Excellence Award for Storytelling and the R. Harris Memorial Playwriting Award for Excellence in Professional Theater for Children. His 30 years of experience as a performing and teaching artist includes Master Storyteller for the Disney Company, the Lincoln Center Institute, LA Music Center, and featured storyteller for the National Storytelling Festival. His international appearances include the Singapore International Story Fest, the Czech Children's Theater Festival, Sydney International Storytelling Conference, and international schools throughout China. David is an A-plus fellow for the North Carolina Arts Council and a North Carolina Wolf Trap teaching artist. He lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm very happy to welcome David to the stage.
Thank you. Wow, is this thing going to bark at me? Somebody needs to give this mic a biscuit. What a great night this has been, huh? We started with some wonderful poetry. We've had some beautiful history, and it's got me thinking, gosh, we've been in a history museum. I haven't really told any history. And this is a wonderful museum. If you have not taken the walk, it's just a wonderful, sweet, sweet museum. And I'm grateful that we could be here, because history is basically storytelling, right? That's what it is. And at this present moment, I think maybe the gain's kind of high on this, but we don't really have a sound person, so I'll just do my best here. Okay. All right. This particular moment in our country, it's important that we tell history and that we remember our history. And I'm thinking, especially after Darcy's wonderful visit here just a little while ago, of an important piece of American history that is rendered as a poem. And some of you may know it. So listen, my children, and you will hear of the midday ride of Jimmy Greer. Jimmy was perched in a sycamore tree that he used for his lookout, waiting to see what Benny the Scout was going to do. Would he play with a ball that was red or was blue? If blue, then he knew that the danger at hand was coming from over the playground sand. If it was red, then it said that the forthcoming dread would appear from around old Ferguson's shed. Beneath him, at the sycamore side, was the red, shiny roadster Jimmy would ride. As soon as he got Ben's secret report, he would jump on his bike and he'd ride to the fort. He would speed on his steed and he'd spread the alarms, warning the neighborhood kids to take arms, to rise and resist the tyrannical rule of the bullies who had bullied so tough and so cruel, to take arms against their troubles, and then, by opposing, assure that never again would they suffer in silence or cower in fright, afraid to go out by day or by night. Well, the bullies had bullied too hard and too long, and though they were big, and though they were strong, Jimmy and Ben, Letitia and Nate, Shariah and Alex, Libby and Kate decided, united, they would stand or they'd fall. That all were for one and each one was for all. Now the bullies were Andy and his buddy Matt, and Cassie the warrior and Paula the rat. They'd gather around kids and force them to pay a tax if ever they wanted to play on the swings or the slide, on the sand or the grass. They'd make them pay tolls in order to pass. And that wasn't all. If they went to the store, they'd stop them again and make them pay more. If they played with a kite, a jump rope, or jacks, they'd gang up around them and make them pay tax. And what did they take from those kids all those times? Pennies and quarters, nickels and dimes, candies and bubble gum, soda pop too. And if you refuse, you know what they do? They'd tie you to trees all covered with ants, spit gum in your hair, or pour mud in your pants. Now some kids tried saying, hey, this isn't fair. There's room here for everyone. Why can't we share? But Andy just laughed. Cassie threw rocks. Paula and Matt kicked dirt in their socks. So Jimmy and Ben, Letitia and Nate, Shariah and Alex, Libby and Kate gathered together in a manner congressional. With paper and pen, being very professional, they wrote down a letter outlining their views and went through the neighborhood spreading the news. Now, Libby was clever. Shariah was bright. Nate was inventive, and Kate sure could fight. And Ben lived near where the bullies would be, and outside his windows, Benny could see if they'd be coming by park or by shack. So Ben was set out to scout the attack. But Jimmy alone of the whole rebel band was the speediest biker in all of the land. So Jimmy was sent to that sycamore tree as part of the neighborhood plan to be free. It was 12 of the clock. The sun bearing down, an ominous calm lay over the town. No breeze was astir, no dog was let out. No birds were heard singing. No bugs buzzed about. When bang! The silence was shattered as a door opened wide, and Benny the Scout came running outside, and into the air he threw a red ball. Jimmy was startled, but he didn't fall. He jumped on his bike, and he rode through the wood, pumping his pedals as fast as he could. He went down the drive while his tires were humming, and he called out loud, "The bullies are coming! The bullies are coming!" His voice rang out clear. "The bullies are coming, and soon we'll be here. The bullies are coming. Rise up, one and all. The bullies are coming." Jim sounded the call down Jefferson Street and along Franklin Drive. "The bullies are coming, and soon we'll arrive." He cut down an alley to Washington Way. "The bullies are coming. Today is the day." And then a sharp turn at Lexington Court, and he came to the oak tree they used as a fort. "Good work," said Libby. "Now you draw them near, and we will get everyone ready out here." And then, out of the tree and into the heat, Jimmy went speeding down Longfellow Street. He rounded a corner at Ferguson's place and came to a stop right before Cassie's face. "Who said that you could go riding today?" Cassie asked Jimmy. "What did you pay?" "I didn't pay nothing," Jimmy replied. "It shouldn't cost money to go for a ride." "Well, it does if you want to be safe," Paula said, as she and the gang came round Fergie's shed. "Yeah," Matt said. "You could fall and get hurt. You could land on your face and have to eat dirt." "Of course, if you pay," Andy stepped in, "you won't lose your bike or get kicked in the shin." Paula ran up, but Jim spun around. Cassie leapt forward, but fell to the ground as Jim sped between Andy and Matt. Matt swung, but Jim ducked and hit Andy flat. Then, round the next corner, but not very far, Jimmy hid behind Mr. Hamilton's car. Andy and Matt and Paula and Cass rounded the corner and started to pass when Jimmy called out, "Who made you king? I don't think it's fair, and I won't pay a thing." He zipped out behind them, but kept them in sight. "Just because you are strong doesn't mean you are right." He put on the speed as they started to rally, leading them down Delaware Alley. "You say that my freedom requires taxation, but I won't pay tax without representation." Well, Andy and Paula cut off Jimmy's route. Jim hit the brakes and spinning about, but Cassie and Matt had Jimmy surrounded. "You're saying," sneered Matt, "that our taxes aren't founded on sound moral ground? Don't be idiotic. Everyone knows it's plain patriotic to let those in power come up with the rules." "Yeah," Paula said, "you babies are fools. We big kids know best, and we work hard to see that this neighborhood's safe enough to be free." "And who knows," Andrew closed, "you could be infected with germs and disease. We should all be protected from people who threaten to put us in danger. You could be a spy or a crook or a stranger coming to break our great institutions. That's why we work hard to come up with solutions that serve to protect all those who obey and silence the ones who want their own say." Paula reached down and picked up a stone. The others did likewise as Jim stood alone. "I don't think it's fair." Jim started to cower. "Yeah, the day you did nothing is the day we took power." Cassie lifted her stone. "It's like this, Jimmy dear. To keep folks in line, you got to keep them in fear." Jim was surrounded. There was no going back. They lifted their stones, just about to attack, when Jim blew on a whistle and leapt to his feet, and the sound of that whistle awoke the whole street. Drums started coming from Benny's front lawn, and then bells from the playground as others came on, and the sound began growing louder and strong, and the bullies looked around and saw a great throng of kids. Any one the bullies could beat, but not when they all stood up in the street. And then out of doors, to the bullies' great shock, came grown-ups with whistles up and down the whole block. They joined with the kids in one glorious chorus. "No party of bullies will make the rules for us. We choose to be free and to stand for the good. And so we're uniting the whole neighborhood. The UN, we'll call it. And it will prevail to see that bullies like you can't assail the right of each child, each woman, each man to liberty, justice, and the freedom to plan their own way of living and worship as well, to speak and assemble and peaceably dwell, the right to enjoy self-determination, so long as their actions cause no limitations to anyone else's rights to these two, to do unto others as we'd have them do. Andy and Paula and Cassie and Matt let their stones go and helplessly sat while a jury of peers decided their fate. A sentence was given, delivered by Nate, that they should repair all the damage they'd done and also repay any monies they'd won, and henceforth should offer service to all, such as tying a shoe or pumping a ball or stopping the traffic when folks cross the street, and never again should they dare to repeat the tyranny with which they once tried to rule. Instead, they should start to study in school not how to make war or how to be strong, but how to make peace and how to right wrong. And since that great day of young Jimmy's alarm, our united neighbors have kept us from harm. But if from without or within should appear a threat to those freedoms we all hold so dear, we know what to do. We will form freedom's band. We'll all make good trouble, for united we stand. Get your whistles ready, folks. I got a feeling we're going to need them. So, I was talking yesterday about Storyland and all those old stories, and they have a place in this circle. And because the old stories are also a part of our history. You know, it's not just the things that people did and what happened and dates and names and battles that were fought and historic personages, but it's also the stories that have been passed down, that have endured over the generations. And I feel that this story that comes out of Storyland that I want to share with you is one of those stories that's worth repeating. But I'd like to repeat it in a slightly different way. I'd like to modernize it a bit. I'd like to tell this story with my handheld video game. You guys play video games here? Anybody? Anybody have a handheld? I bet some of you guys. You got a video game? Well, when I was a boy in school, we played video games all the time. They were allowed. We could play them during recess and at lunch and all. Nowadays, they're not allowed, but they've changed a lot since I was a kid, because I've got a few years on me, you know. This is what our video games look like. See? Yep. I was once sharing this with some middle schoolers, and one of the kids said, "That's not a video game." I said, "You know what the word video means? It's Latin, video. I see it." That's what it means. You hold it in your hand, you look at it, it's a video. And it's a handheld video. And this is the world's oldest handheld video game. We call it Cat's Cradles, maybe. Sound familiar? String figures, right? And with these strings, all around the world, you know, people could make pictures to go with their stories. And so, like this we call this cat's whiskers, right? When it's in season. So, you know, throughout Asia, Polynesia, Australia, the Americas, Africa, all around the world, our ancestors would make images with string, and our first storytellers would use the string to illustrate their stories. So I would like to take this old story from Storyland and string you along for one more story tonight, if that's okay with you. This is a story that's often been told about magic beans and giants' gold. The hero of the story is a boy named Jack. He lived with his mother in this rundown shack. Can you see the outline of the house there? There it is, yeah. That's the house Jack built. Now, Jack and his mother were poor as the dirt, and that's a situation that really hurt. His mother said, Jack, we'll manage somehow. Go out to the market and sell the cow. Tie a tether round Milky White. Go out in the morning and come back at night. Well, Jack jumped up in the morning light, and he tied a tether round their cow, Milky White. So Jack headed out with his cow on a tether. When a funny little man hopped onto the heather, he said, Jack, you're a climber. Now I can tell you'll go far. You'll do well. You got your sights on the heights. You got your eye on the sky. You're a capable, intelligent kind of guy. But to get you started, the thing you need is a little bit of help from a magic seed. Now, Jack, in this pouch I keep beans of power. If you plant these beans, you'll get more in a flower. You'll get a beanstalk that's as tall as a star. Well, these magic beans will take you far. So Jack traded his cow for those beans. And, to his surprise, those beans grew into a stalk of enormous size. So Jack jumped up. He started to climb. He reached the top and had a wonderful time till he heard some thunder that made him afeard, for in stomped a giant with a long, stringy beard. He said, Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. But the giant's wife said, Fee, fi, fo, my foot. Now you sit down, you stay put. I've been working all morning to cook your feast, so you will eat it and like it at the very least. So you sit down and you be quiet. Besides, little boys are too rich for your diet. They're all made of sodium and sugar and lard. And you ever try to cook one? Oh, it's much too hard. Well, now that giant ate his meal, and he started to snore. And Jack crept out through the kitchen door, but before Jack left, he made so bold as to take that giant's big bag of gold. Oh, that big bag of gold sure made his mother smile. And they were happy for quite a while. But as you probably know, Jack went back up that stalk, and he hid when he heard that giant talk, saying, Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. But the giant's wife said, Now there aren't any little boys about, so you eat what I cooked or you eat out. Whew. Well, that giant ate his meal, and he snored once more, and Jack tippy-toed across the floor, and this time Jack took the magic hen. And then he climbed back down that stalk again. And now when Jack tells that hen to lay, she lays golden eggs into the nest each day. But Jack wasn't done, not quite yet, because there was one thing more Jack wanted to get. So he climbed back up that stalk once more, and he hid when he heard that giant roar, saying, Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my... Now, woman, don't tell me he's not here, 'cause I smell little boy. Whoa, it's strong and clear. Well, I'll skin him alive, and I'll tan his hide, I'll dip him in batter, and I'll have him fried. But Jack stayed hid. That kid was smart. So after a while, the old giant lost heart, ate his meal, once again slept, and out from hiding, Jack carefully crept. Oh, look at that, I got tied up in knots. What do you know about that? To the cupboard in the castle with the harp that sings. But the harp sang out from her golden strings, singing, help, 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 I need somebody, help, help, help. That woke up the giant who went after Jack, but lickety-split, Jack climbed back. He grabbed his axe, he chopped and he chopped until that ugly old giant dropped. Down! So Jack survived. His mother did too. And after all that, what did Jack do? Well, Jack became famous in his hometown for sharing his beans and his gold all around. Because it's just as true now as it was long ago. We got to share our treasures for good things to grow. So I just got to say, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing whenever we gather like this to share our stories, to share our treasures. Now, it's true, there's not a lot of monetization we can derive from that. But the story tells us about that too. You see, Jack goes up there and he gets a bag of gold because he has immediate need, right? He goes back, he gets that hen. He's got a renewable resource now. He makes the most dangerous journey, the most perilous journey to get something that has really no market value. It's a harp that sings. But it turns out that's the one we're really risking our lives for. That's the one that has the most value of all. And we should never stop our search until we've all brought back that harp that sings, whatever that is. Get that harp and let it sing. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.